Good evening. I have several things to say. One of them is, this is an absurd site to have a public hearing. It's nearly half a mile from the nearest right-of-way. There were 30 people or so who attempted to express themselves with their feet, with their presence, but they couldn't make a very effective message because it's a half mile away. It's sort of like having NRC hearings at Camp Perry, which is also very quite commonplace. I'm an attorney. I've had the pleasure over years of representing the Michigan Sierra Club, the Ohio Sierra Club, the Ohio Green Party, and many other grassroots organizations and individuals in numerous interventions before the NRC. In 1994, a couple of good friends of mine, Bill and Alice Hurt, longtime anti-nuclear activists, were plaintiffs in a lawsuit that I filed in the District of Columbia challenging the permission, the rulemaking that the NRC implemented to allow an exception for the use of the 3 defective casks that Kevin Camps mentioned a little while ago. There were 3 dry casks up for use as storage modules that were defectively ground. They were too thin, they weren't up to spec, and in classic traditional response, the NRC simply made the exception into the rule. We challenged the rulemaking and ran into a brick wall, figuratively at least. But therein lies the message. Here we are, about a generation later, and these 3 casks are sitting there, and the NRC now expects them to last forever. Let me explain. 10 CFR 51.23, it's a lot of gobbledygook. That refers to the proposed regulation that was mentioned at the outset. That regulation effectively accepts on-site storage forever if that becomes necessary. The NRC has very craftily used this court remand that was won by the hard-fought environmental warriors that took them. The NRC is using the rulemaking as a means of cutting out the public. Generic environmental impact statement means here in 2013, 2014, they're making a decision, and essentially forever, let's say if forever only means a couple hundred years, so long after we're dead, no one will be able to challenge the environmental effects as these casks deteriorate, have to be replaced, are bombed, are destroyed by elements, are flooded. No one will be able, from the public, to meaningfully question and legally attack the sufficiency of the storage scheme. So make no mistake, folks, this is about a solution now when we are the most information-rich and resource-rich for all time. Because I have a feeling future generations will not live as well nor be as educated and be as understanding about what to do with this enormous problem. There's one alternative that wasn't discussed, isn't being discussed in the proposed environmental impact statement. That is the alternative of stopping now. Yeah. It's the only sane alternative, and it's not being considered. My strong recommendation is that the NRC go back to the drawing board, get real, and treat us like adults, and treat us as though this is a democracy. Thank you.
This is David Ellison.
Good evening. My name is David Ellison. I'm an architect, and I can attest that humanity has never built anything that lasted this long, no matter how many plumbers and electricians were involved. And if you give me $500 billion, we'll have as many jobs as anybody needs, and they won't involve nuclear pollution. I think there's a dangerous presumption that's being made, and that is that we will have ongoing agency, government, corporate, or public competence. I think that there's an incorrect assumption that the NRC's mission is to enable licensure in an efficient manner. or to make licensure easy, efficient, or desirable for for-profit entities. I'm opposed, and I think that I speak for many people, that we are opposed to any aspect of this rulemaking which would facilitate or make more efficient or enable licensure of any new facilities or the extension of any licenses at existing facilities. Nuclearism is corrosive to democratic forms of human governance, and in fact, the mere existence of high-level radioactive waste provides the only rational justification for the permanent imposition of martial law that exists. If there's any doubt about this, it was only the falsified mention of yellow cake that allowed the government to go into Iraq and be in this interminable war that is still affecting the people of Iraq, the Middle East, and the rest of the world. The Patriot Act was a result of this. The NSA spying is a result of this. This is nuclearism, and it's the denial of democratic forms of human governance. I'm a member of the Cuyahoga County Central Committee of the Green Party of Ohio, a political party that the state legislature and governor abolished in legislature last month. If that's not pretty repressive of democracy, I don't know what it is. I think I'll leave it at that, since I could go on and on. Thank you very much. And
Thanks. I'm going to be really brief, because I think that my colleagues are more well-researched and can say it much better than I can. But as a mother, I just want to say that I'm scared. I'm scared for my children. I'm scared for my potential grandchildren. I'm going to be dead, and I'm looking at all of you, and so are you, 160 years. What are you thinking? Let's stop while we're ahead. Let's not put this on our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren any more than we already have. I want you to stop now. I don't want to have my great-grandchildren or my grandchild or my son say, well, there went the Great Lakes. People, human beings, operate these plants, and you all make the rules. And humans, I gotta tell you, we are not infallible. We make mistakes. This is dangerous stuff to be making mistakes with. I just want us to have future generations. Please stop making the waste and turn attention to safely isolating it, because that's the problem that we've already created. Thank you.
My name is Gary Border, and this isn't about me, but I think I should tell you a little bit about who I am. I have a PhD in electrical engineering from the University of Toledo, a couple of master's degrees, and started my college career at Case, Cleveland. I have mixed feelings on what I've heard thus far, but I think we've got to be realistic, folks. We've got a society here that has an appetite for electricity. I was on the Coast Starlight train a couple of years ago on a family vacation, and early in the morning, the train stopped at Klamath Falls, Oregon, and a guy got on and asked if he could sit across from me in the club car. And he turned out to be a rail buff, and I had a just mile by mile tour. Look at this, look at that. It was fantastic. Turned out to be an IBM systems engineer from Salem, Oregon. And after about 10 or 15 minutes of that, we got talking about other things, which I think is normal. And he said, "You're an electrical engineer, what do you know about power?" I said, "Well, I'm digital, but I've been involved with power." He said, "Well, can you tell me where we're going to get power over the next 10 to 20 years?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "We're running out of power here." I said, "Well, I recommend nuclear." And he laughed. He said, "We tried that, and we built one plant, had some problems with it, just shut it down, turned off the lights, and locked the door." He said, "What do you think of wind power?" Well, I live in Bowling Green, and I can tell you that wind turbines have their own set of problems. One of them is very simple. Once you get over about 20% of your power coming from wind turbines, the days that the wind doesn't blow is a real problem. You're killing birds. There's all sorts of problems with wind turbines. Then he said, "How about solar cells?" I said, "Yeah, maybe in 50 years they'll be affordable." I said, "How about coal?" They say it was scrubbers. And he just laughed. He said, "No, we won't do that." He says, "They want to tear down Grand Coulee Dam and Bonneville Dam." Where are we going to get power? I just encourage everybody here to think about that. Think about global warming. We've talked about all this radiation, okay? But global warming could kill everybody on this planet in 100, 200, 300 years. And if we keep putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and I'm not convinced that will happen, but it could. So you got to look for clean power. Right now, I don't see any choice. And I want to commend the NRC for working with a very difficult problem. And I encourage the NRC in whatever is produced to produce something that allows for the responsible licensing, construction, and operation of nuclear power plants. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. My name is Paul Bedad. Close. I'd just like to thank the NRC for facilitating this meeting. Instead of repeating prior comments or spouting a bunch of statistics, I would just like to say that I live in Temperance, Michigan, which is not very far from here. I live close to both Fermi and Davis-Besse, and I am in favor of and have confidence in these fuel storage options. Thank you for this opportunity.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Schonberger, D-A-V-I-D-S-C-H-O-N-B-E-R-G-E-R, and I am a resident of Ann Arbor, Michigan, home to a Department of Nuclear Engineering at the university, which needs a shift in consciousness. Thank you for the 3-minute opportunity to speak on the record today. I intend to submit detailed, extensive written comments to the NRC prior to the December 20th deadline, and I sincerely hope that the NRC staff will thoughtfully consider my perspective. The oral comments which I am providing today are a brief summary curtailed by the time constraints of this forum. All of my comments are my own and not endorsed by any other individual or organization. I'm representing myself, my own point of view as a concerned individual citizen, and am not representing any particular group or organization with which I may be affiliated. My comments at today's public meeting, December 2nd, 2013, in Perrysburg, Ohio, pertain specifically to the U.S. NRC's Waste Confidence DGEIS and proposed Waste Confidence Rule 10 CFR 51.23. So I do not support the proposed NRC rule that is the subject of this meeting, and I emphatically dispute both the premises and the conclusions of the Waste Confidence DGEIS, which are codified in the rule and form the regulatory basis for promulgating it. I also have serious doubts and concerns about the independence and integrity of the NRC's administrative rulemaking process. As Abe Lincoln famously said, you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. In reverse order, I would like to address each of the supplemental additional issues that have been, the NRC is requesting public comments on. First, regarding the additional issue number 4, I believe the term waste confidence rule is a poor choice of words and should be changed. It is an inelegant and anachronistic nomenclature from the 1980s based on predictions and assumptions which have proved to be erroneous and absurd, thus subjecting the proposed rule, to well-deserved mockery, derision, and ridicule. Furthermore, the provenance of the revised rule is unusual in that it has emerged in response to and as a result of the unanimous decision of a federal court of appeals which vacated and remanded the previous 2010 version of the NRC waste confidence rule. Secondly, regarding supplemental additional issue number 3, I believe that it is a good idea to streamline the Federal Register to remove redundancies and anachronisms. Conversely, I also believe that the NRC should increase and maximize redundancies in the, quote, real world. In other words, generally speaking, the NRC should not be in the business of eliminating redundancies. Redundancies should be augmented. Thirdly, regarding both supplemental additional issues number 1 and additional issue number 2, I believe that it is duplicative and more than a little duplicitous and deceptive to include inside an official CFR rule policy statements and language that are out of bounds of the force of law, as well as beyond the scope and authority of the agency NRC to guarantee, implement, or enforce.
David, I'm going to have to ask you to finish.
I'll wrap up, thank you. I believe that such disingenuous language, policy statements in the proposed rule, regardless of previous tradition, unintentionally invites the NRC's critics to correctly characterize the proposed rule as a con and as a false assurance based on a foundation of hubris, fantasy, and delusion. Thank you for your attention.